Hello and welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Yay, we're happy to be here.
Yes, we are. So, a couple of things. This is the second Fireside Chat that we have done. We did the last one 2 years ago, and a lot has changed.
So much has changed.
Yes.
And we did that Fireside Chat right at the beginning when we started the connection experiences. I think we had done about 30 or so experiences at that point, and now we're well over 300, so we have lots more to share.
Yes. And we have learned a bunch of things that we want to share with you, and we want to share a bunch of stories. The most important thing about this is the changes that actually occur in people's lives. So before we do that, however, shout out to
Alexander Ford at Measurable... Can we do that again? Shit. Can you say that part again and they can edit that?
No, just
Okay.
keep going. We're
Oh,
not...
okay. To Alexander at Measurable Genius Studios, who was, just set this place up today to make this whole set, and it's really, really lovely.
Yes. So anyway, if you ever need video shot, if you...
Sorry.
Okay, so here's the thing about this. This is live. We're going to have some fun. It is not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but here's the thing that you need to know. If you ever have live video streaming, if you need a little workshop or a classroom, if you need any of the things in the digital marketing world, call Measurable Genius. Mm-hmm. And I did the same thing too.
I know. It's hard to say.
And just to be clear, we have not had anything today, any of those sorts of things. Anyway, so we are here to talk about the connection experience and really how we're going to go about that in a moment or two is we're going to answer the 10 key questions that you have. And actually, why don't we use this little slide called the agenda that will guide us through that process.
That sounds good. We'll give you a brief version of our story so that you can have some history about us, get to know us. Who is the Fireside Chat for?
And honestly, we're going to spend a lot of time on that. And I think that's the most important distinction between our first experience of this and the second, which is we want to help you identify if this is right for you. And we want to share a bunch of stories about that. So when you get to the spot of, maybe we should do something, here's the honest to goodness truth, you're probably past it. But we're gonna talk about all of those details.
Yes. And of course, the top 10 questions that couples ask us, we get asked really similar questions over and over again. So one of the beautiful things about putting this out there is it just answers everything for you.
Yeah. And if there are any live questions, we'll do our very best to squeeze that in if we have time.
Mm-hmm. And what next steps are. So how do you take the next step if you want to do something like this with us?
Exactly. All right.
Background, our background. Where do we start? How much do we want to say?
We'll do chapter titles because, I think the most important part to know is that we are high school sweethearts. So we have been in relationship for
a long time. For a very long time.
For almost 40 years.
Yeah.
For almost 40 years. So the picture on the left is the photo we took after our wedding when we got back from Cabo San Lucas.
Yeah. And our family, we have two boys, Wyatt and Jackson. They're 14 and 19.
Yeah.
Sweethearts.
Mostly. Actually, they're great kids. And fundamentally, the big picture for us is heading to our 25th wedding anniversary. We weren't sure we were going to make it. And we had been trying a variety of things, and we'd always get a little lift, and then it would sort of go back to the same.
Yeah.
And the important part is that nothing was horrible. It's like no one was unfaithful, nobody was abusing anybody, like all the rest. We had just gotten to this spot of coping in our life instead of creating. And when I say coping, I genuinely mean that. We were raising two kids, we were running 3 businesses, we buried 3 of our parents.
Yeah.
In many of those cases, we were primary caregivers for them towards the end.
Yes.
Jesus, we were taxed.
Yeah. And the words that have come up a lot from us and other couples is that parallel lives. Like we were both doing our own thing. We loved each other a lot, but we were just coasting, like you said, and not coming together. And it was fine, but it wasn't great.
And I think, before we dive into, questions and people's stories and all the rest of it, for me, and this is the thing that I want to share with everyone here, I think for me, the key piece is this. If you've gotten to the spot where you are justifying to yourself, and I'll tell you more about this in a little while, where you're justifying to yourself why it's okay to just be fine, you're in the right spot. If you've gotten to the spot of, well, this is what happens wherever, whenever kids come on the scene, you're in the right spot.
Yeah.
If you still love your partner and you're curious, like, why is it like this when we love each other, you're in the right spot.
And this just happens over time.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents were married for coming up, I think, 50-ish years. And it was just a given. After a period of time, you're together, but you're not together. And I think that in our world, we think that's inevitable. And that's how all relationships kind of go. But it doesn't have to be that way.
By no stretch of the imagination. So after this 25th almost ending, what transpired in short was that I had an experience of participating in a psychedelic journey with a friend and a guide of ours. And I basically got spotlight from, I would say, God's spirit, higher self, whatever you want to call it, showing this brick wall that had been built between Corey and I, and on every single one of those bricks was one of those little stories, one of those little justifications, one of those little convincing of self that this is going to be okay, and that it's all right, and that it happens to everyone, and I should just settle, and. And in that experience, it was like, that's bullshit. And that brick wall between us either has to go, or we have to end. And it was like, I need to do my part for that. So I came home, and after a couple of days, had a conversation, said, this is what happened. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to grow my hair. I'm going to fix my teeth. And I'm getting on with my life. And I would love for you to come with me. And I also expect that you can't, because we've been trying this thing at that stage of the game for over a decade. And that was a fun conversation.
That was a fun conversation. I call it the talk. And also, and I don't know how much we say about this, but we have been approached to do have this kind of experience, and we were always a hard no.
For like 5 years prior.
Yeah, we were always, no, we're not going to take psychedelics. No, we're not going to take anything that's a chemical. No, we're not. And so when he came home and told me that he had this experience, first I was angry at you, because I'm like, what? We always said we weren't going to do this, and then you went and did it without me. So that all happened, and then the conversations moved forward from there. So that is really what opened the door, though, was that experience you had in San Diego.
Now, ironically, or perfectly, or however you want to call it, that experience happened about March 3rd, 2020. And I don't know how many of you remember, but about March 13th, 2020, the world shut down. And the beauty was that we then had, and I was on planes, trains, and automobiles probably 2 weeks a month for the previous 7-8 years. And suddenly we had exclusive time to focus on one another, on our relationship, and have the conversations that needed to be had. And that led to our reinvention. That was spectacular, that I will forever be grateful for. Combined, we lost about 60 pounds. We reinvented our sex life. That went up 10x, not just in frequency, but in intensity and joy. We healed a bunch of our old traumas. We identified a whole bunch of patterns. And it was like...
Thank God for COVID.
Yeah, seriously.
I know it was like a hard time, but it saved us, honestly.
Yeah. In fact, we had a little sort of secret thing. It was like hashtag best pandemic ever.
Yeah.
Which, if that insults any of you, I know it was hard on some of you. There were also good things about it.
And one of the challenges we had was your traveling. I mean, he was gone a lot. So for us to just be stuck together 24/7 and have this opening happen just days before that all shut down, it was I still believe it was meant to be that way.
Yeah, divinely guided, I'm certain.
Yeah.
So we reinvent ourselves for a span of about 2 years. In that time frame, we have people showing up asking us, hey, can you help us? And like, what are you doing and how are you doing it? And we're like, well, we're just trying to save ourselves, thank you very much. And then ultimately we decided to go and get our psychedelic guide certification process to learn more about how we might serve and support other clients. And it wasn't our agenda, to be clear. And from there, we beta tested the connection experience, which is primarily what we're talking about here tonight, or today. And it became our accidental business.
Yeah, we call it our accidental business. And it really was that. It was, how do we take this experience that we've had together and share that? Because in conversations with friends and family, what became apparent to us was how many couples were in a similar position we were in, the parallel lives, or struggling, or, I mean, the truth kind of comes out when you just allow people to say what's really going on. And when we would tell our story, so many people would be like, oh my God, like we're in a similar space, or we're dealing with this. And it got us thinking about, man, if this worked for us in this way, there has to be a way it can be recreated for others.
Which set us off on this entire process. We have since done all sorts of things. We've designed almost 14 different protocols to serve and support primarily couples. We've spoken at something called the Science of Psychedelics. We got to share the stage with luminaries like Rick Doblin of MAPS and a whole variety of other brilliant human beings. And really our aim in this entire, I'm going to call it business of Connected Now and Forever and the connection experience, is that the intention here is really simply this. It is, if you think of it as a Venn diagram, where there's the relationship, there's him and there's her, or her and her, or him and him, whatever it is, we're not attached to that. When we put those pieces together, where I'm doing my work to bring the best of myself to my partner, she's doing her work to bring the best of herself to me, and then we bring both of those pieces to the relationship, here's what the experience is. And it's true for us, and there's a part of me that's really proud of what I'm about to say, and there's a part of me that's embarrassed about it. It is the honest to God truth, is the experience of being the most loved and loving of our lives. And I'm proud of that because it changed us. And I'm embarrassed about it because it took us 30 freaking years to get through our own shit, to tell enough of the truth, to face ourselves, to bring ourselves to what I'm going to call true selves, to experience it. And here's what I can tell you, and say this as clear as I can before we dive into really the questions. If you have ever felt even slightly not loved, rejected, denied, unlovable, unworthy, not seen, not heard, if you've ever been in any of those things, which I think is frankly every single human being on planet Earth in a relationship at some stage of the game, if you've ever felt that, and you are willing to truly do the work within and with your partner, this is for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it does take that willingness, you know. I mean, you're watching this because someone has shared it with you, or your spouse has come to you and said, hey, honey, like I found out about something, and there's often one person in the couple who's a little more resistant, or a little bit like, what? That would have been me, right? We both have said, if I was in San Diego, ooh, I touched that, with you at the time you did, we might not have had that experience. You might not have had that experience, because I probably would have had the brakes on and be like, you want to do what? No. But anyway, you're watching this for a reason. So willingness is really important for all of it. Like the idea, you might be scared or nervous or what the heck is this all about? But if you are willing and your partner's willing, then this is for you. So keep watching.
Do you want to tell the story about the no and yes just before we dive into that? Because I think it's a big deal.
The wall of no's. Yes. Yeah, when we had our, what I used to call Tub Talks with Jay during COVID, thousands of hours of conversation.
We spent a lot of time in the tub.
And what came really clear to me was how I have been through our relationship often what I called a wall of no's. So he would come with an idea or something new, or let's try this, or let's do this, or you're the idea guy, and I'd be, and my brakes would go on, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know, I don't think I want to do that, or why would we try that, or that's not going to work. And I always had these reasons which always led to a no. And when we were talking, I was like, God, like what a drag I am. Why would you want to be married to me? Like, no. And bless your heart, you always just kept trying and coming with something else.
So I just want to tell my version of this, which is, so we were having all these conversations, and we got really curious, and that was the beautiful part about this. It wasn't like, well, what you did, like that wasn't it. It was like
very curious.
The sponsoring thought was, how do two human beings who love each other?
How did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get here?
What on earth?
Yeah.
And anyway, so we are having these, and then one day, and I think we weren't in the tub. I think it was this accumulation of conversation. And then she comes to me and she goes, you know what I just realized? It's like, I've just been a big fat no. I'm just like, just a big fat no, and it's like. And I'm beginning to see how hard that has been. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I remember it, like, and it was almost like shocking to you as you saw yourself in it.
Yeah, and there's so much behind that we don't need to get into here. But I grew up with security and safety being like core values, and so anything new and different and out of the box is seen as like I need to think a lot about it. It could be a scary thing or a threat or whatever. And you were always like growing up taking risks and trying new things. So we brought those dynamics together, and this may be familiar to you in your relationship. But anyway, I chose to turn the wall of no's into a sea of yeses. And I said, you know what, from this point forward, I am going
that
to
was epic freaking fun.
be a sea of yeses. And it's so much so that you can ask me to do anything, and I will say, probably yes, probably. So I just committed to that because I knew that was something I had to shift and adjust and change in our dynamic to move us forward. And that was a huge, huge thing for us.
Yeah, monumental.
Yeah.
So, given that, let's dive into the top 10 questions. And,
Okay.
you know, the very first question is, who are psychedelics for and who do we serve? And honest to goodness, out of all of the questions, we're going to spend the most time on this particular one, simply because I want you to truly understand the possibility here. We didn't get the possibility. We couldn't and wouldn't believe the possibility. We didn't have enough support or structure around the conversations to be able to say yes to it. Like, you know, and to be very clear about this, you know, the big fat no versus I want to experiment. Even I was terrified about using psychedelics. And like, it just didn't fit. It made no
Just say
sense.
no. You know, the war on drugs, like the fried egg, and this is your brain on drugs, and conversations with our kids about never do drugs and never take this from someone. So we had that just ingrained in our being.
And if you do, and I just want to say this as clear as I possibly can, if you still have a bunch of that propaganda in your heart, mind, and soul, just like for the purposes of the next 45 minutes or so, just set it aside. Just set it aside and pose the question, what if? Like, what if? Okay, so let's talk about who are psychedelics for and who do we serve. And so there's primarily 3 groups. Do you want to do the groups?
Sure. Well, the first one is couples who have been together, and this is on average 7 to 15 years. They have kids, perhaps aging parents, and they're in a space of basically coping and kind of what we talked about.
Parallel lives.
Parallel lives, yeah.
And it's a little bit like, if you've ever used these words, by the way, we're going to divide and conquer, okay? So you take the young one to hockey and you do the shopping, you do that. I'll take the old one to hockey and make sure to get over to school, and I will do the laundry and you will do the yard, and we just divide and conquer to handle the epic amount of shit on our list, which, by the way, sounds pretty good at the surface in terms of coping with the epic amount of shit, except when it comes to us becoming like life partners and mechanic handling partners instead of lovers and partners.
And let's just say, everyone knows this, kids change things a lot. So we were together 10 years before kids, and some couples, you know, right when they get married, they have kids, or even prior. And so the whole dynamic of the relationship shifts and changes. And all that, you know, like the kids come first and we get put on the back burner, and then over time that causes challenges. So you might be in that stage of your relationship. Another group that we see quite often come through the connection experience is are people on their second marriages or relationships. And
we also include there, they may not be in their second, but they're out of the box thinkers. They're like progressive, like we're going to try something.
Yeah, exactly. And often they'll say, we do not want to make the same mistake we made the first time. You know, we're aware of what didn't work and what went wrong and how we showed up in that relationship, and we really want to have a new experience here.
Yeah. And then the third category are couples that are recognizing that they're facing issues. They're still in love. It's not like one person, well, generally, it's not like one person has their foot out the door, but it's like we either solve this or we need to wrap this up. And depending upon where they're at, the connection experience might be appropriate for them, or we might do one of our other protocols, something like the couples journey, that gives them more individual space before trying to rebuild the relationship. But those are the 3 prime categories that we serve. Now, to me, I want to dive into this, and this is where, you know, I'm going to ask you, if you're watching, to actually really push yourself to be honest and to be like totally honest about the feelings that you have in these spaces. So in our first Fireside Chat, we talked about parallel lives a fair amount. And the folks that would show up that we would serve, would often say, it's like that line. When you said parallel lives, we looked at each other and went, that's us. And so that's great. But here's the part that I want to sort of lean into for a moment or two, is that parallel lives is the chapter title. But underneath the chapter title is a whole bunch more of what the difficulties are, the feelings that we face. And I'll personalize this very clearly. The stories that I put on the brick that built the distance between us.
Yeah.
So, you know, here's an example. If you've ever, and by the way, male or female, if you've ever been lying in bed and you wanted to initiate sex with your partner, and you felt like being intimate, and you wanted that connection, but you held yourself back because maybe you didn't want to get rejected again, or maybe you were actually even a little bit mad at your partner and you wanted to actually withhold some connection. Or you were too tired, or you're afraid they were too tired, or you insert whatever the story is that you used to not initiate reaching out and saying, hey, would you like to connect? Would you like to make love? If you've ever been in that spot, that is one of those pieces of withholding. Now, that's the mechanic again, but I want to be clear about this, and I've put my hand up to this because this was true for me. For many years, that part of our pattern was I'd reach out, she'd say no. I'd reach out, she'd say no, and then I'd go, oh, I don't want to do that again. If you recognize the pattern, great. But more important to me is this. I know, we're looking at both cameras there. But more important to me is this, and I want to be super clear about this, is what is the feeling and the story that you go to sleep with in that spot? And what I can tell you personally for me is every single time that feeling of, well, I would curse about it in my head. Every single time I'd go to sleep in that spot, it was, there's another brick.
Yeah.
Every single time. So if you have some of those experiences, and by the way, that's just one, and like me getting snarky about it. So then I'd wake up not happy, right? And then feeling rejected. Even though at that stage of the game, she didn't reject me, I didn't even try.
Yeah.
And yet I'm still mad at her, if that makes any sense. So then I wake up in the morning and I'm a grumpy son of a bitch, which I can be a...
You can be a grumpy son of a bitch.
And then it feels...
And then resentment would build because he would be like snarky and snappy and grumpy, and with me and the kids, and I would put my, like, have my back up against the wall and get angry, but I wouldn't really say I'm angry. I was just angry. And then that would play out, you know, over and over and over again. And we weren't really communicating about it. You know, we were both resenting one another, but we weren't saying, hey, I'm resenting you because, or I'm upset because. It just was something that wasn't easy to talk about day to day. So we just would do our thing and hold these little, like, kind of, you know, towards each other. That was, again, as you talked about that wall, building that wall between us.
And here's what we know in terms of dealing with the multitude of clients that have come to us, is that every one of us has, as a couple, our own dynamics and our own patterns that actually create distance. And I want to just talk about one of the tools that we use for integration after the connection experience, which is we call the space between. And it becomes a way to measure, because all couples have this space between that they get used to. And sometimes there's a brick wall between, sometimes it's the Grand Canyon, sometimes it's just a little stream, but we get used to whatever that distance is. And one of the tools that we start using is, what is the distance between? Are we satisfied and okay with that? Is it staying the same? Is it moving further apart? Is it moving further together? And what do I need to be and do to do my part? What do you need to be and do to your part? And how do we have this in the process of where we're both satisfied and we're both engaged and we're both thrilled with where we're going and what's going on? And when I say thrilled, I don't mean like all rainbows and unicorns and smiles. I mean in the context of what's going on. You know, we just had a family death. In the context of what's going on, how did we show up for one another? Do we feel closer to each other? Are we doing our own piece to bring the best of ourselves to each other?
And so our conversations move towards that. And that also takes a lot of the blame and accusations out of those conversations, because you're both looking at how you're both showing up and how that space is being created and what you can each do to bring it closer together. So it's kind of taking ownership and accountability for, hey, these are some of the things that I can do, here's some of the things you can do, and then we can check in with each other to see where we're at with it, when we feel it's kind of moving apart again or it's coming back together. So yeah, it's a really great tool, actually.
Stunning. So I want to just talk about a couple of other quick examples in terms of this big picture of who's this for. We have several couples who, I'm not even sure how to say this exactly, so I'll just, who completely misassessed how bad the relationship was.
Right.
And here's the thing. We're a little bit like frogs in a pot of boiling water. It's like we get used to how it is. We justify how it is. We make it okay for how it is, depending on.
We even get comfortable with it. It's, it gets to be our comfort zone, right?
We lean into our avoidance mechanisms, and that could be working out, that could be watching TV, that could be scrolling Facebook, that could be alcohol, that could be whatever the hell it is. But we cope with that in some way, shape, or form. But here's another sort of rationale I want you to think of. We've got a bunch of couples who said afterwards, like, I think we're okay. Like, we're going to just get closer. And it's like, what was on my mind was when our youngest goes to university, I was just going to go and live with him. We weren't going to get divorced and make it all messy, but we weren't staying together. And I was planning on moving out. And actually, 2 of our couples have had exactly that story. Is that I'm just going to go and spend time with the youngest at university, and we're going to just let it do its thing. And what's funny is that it's like I had that thought, but I didn't before the connection experience put together what it actually meant, which is we're over, but we're just not going to put the nail in the coffin.
Did we mention empty nesters?
We didn't.
Because that's part. Because we have quite a few in our community, I'd say, that are now facing each other after the kids leave. And this was one couple that their kids are gone and going to university, and now the 2 of them are together, and they're looking at each other and going, oh shit, like, now what do we do? Anyway, that's part of that too.
Well, in fact, the exact phrase that was said, by one of that member of that couple was, we were slowly coasting towards our inevitable end. And sweet Jesus, my friends, if any of you feel like you're slowly coasting to the inevitable end, either end it now or do something about it and join us and see if there's another option. Because slowly coasting to your inevitable end sounds like the most god-awful thing in the entire universe to me. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's true for a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to say about the who's it for?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everybody. We've had a few couples come in who are just adventurous. There doesn't have to be something quote unquote wrong. They're newlyweds, and they just knew they wanted adventure, and they wanted spark, and they wanted to take risks, and they wanted to I think it was like some kind of couples thing every year or whatever, and they found us, and they come in with like just audacious goals and visions and fun and play, and they're just having a blast. And it's kind of like preventative, we want to set our relationship up this way, and we're hoping that as we continue on, this will support us when we do face the issues and the challenges that we know we're going to face eventually. So that's kind of cool too, when people do come in with that frame of mind.
Actually, when you were saying that, there's a couple of other things I want to say about this, and then we'll leave
then we'll move on.
Yes, I promise. I promise we'll answer the other questions, but this is honestly the most important, which is we have a couple that has been in the ritual. So here, just so this makes sense, if you do, or when you do, you should do the connection experience. Most couples, like over 90% of the couples, continue on and do something called the ritual, which is they commit to doing this on a regular basis to continue to move the space between closer. And we had a couple who started with us who, in their words, were in jeopardy. They ran a business together. They were trying to figure out what was going to happen with the business, all those pieces. They were not having sex. They hadn't had sex for quite some time. And as they go through the ritual, they're in their second year, 3 things have transpired. is that, number one, they've fallen in love with one another. Both of them have done incredible work. Their business has exploded, as has their sex life. But I want to be clear about this, because sometimes people think like the connection experience is all about sex because it's psychedelics, is that most of the time it takes clearing and work and connection to get rid of the stuff between, which was true for us. You and I had talked for 6 months before it really, you know, transformed. It takes that clearing time, but after the clearing time, that's where stuff gets incredibly fascinating, beautiful, and amazing. So just know as well that if you're in a spot where intimacy is not really where you'd like it to be, that happens all the time. And in fact, another couple just Friday night, been together 29 years, intimacy had faded quite substantially, and their words the next morning was that we experienced an intimacy miracle.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So that was one point. The other thing I wanted to read or to let you know was, in terms of couples describing this, there was a brilliant couple, flew in from the States, again, together about 29 years, kids off to college, all the rest of it. And in this case, the husband was a little uncertain, shall we say.
A little.
A little. As sometimes happens, gang. So just
And I just want to say, by the way, if anyone's watching this, we're using a lot of examples from couples in our community. We don't say any names or anything like that, but you might recognize your story in this.
Yes. And we are grateful for you guys sharing the stories with us, because it's what makes the most difference for couples. But his words the next morning is, we have been in therapy for 10 years. For 10 years, trying to solve our issues so that we can connect. Last night, we connected and solved our issues. In
Isn't that
one
amazing?
night. Like, good Lord.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah. We'll carry on.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Number 9.
What is the experience like?
And will
I lose control?
That's got to be your domain.
My domain. Well, that was one of my concerns. So I never grew up doing any kind of psychedelics, or I mean, I did a little bit of. We played a little bit earlier in our relationship with trying mushrooms, and you've had more experience than I have, but. So I was really concerned about what's this going to feel like, and how will I show up, and losing control is never a fun feeling. Like, that's one of the things that I don't love about alcohol, and when you just feel like you don't have the control. So we get a question asked a lot, what is the experience like? And about the control thing, I'll just say my own experience was with the medicine we use with couples, with, I think we'll talk about later, the empathogen and tactogen family of psychedelics, because psychedelics is a big word and there's a lot of them, and we use a very specific family of them for connection. And my experience with those, when the first time I took them and every time since, is I get more connected to my higher self, and I feel more in my body and more grounded, more present than I ever thought was possible for me. And I kind of say it's a little embarrassing, but more so than when I'm in my normal state. You know, I'm like, I think it's just incredible how it just brought me home, and it just brought me into my body. And to feel that in myself, for me to experience and see my higher self, my true self, and experience your higher self, true self, whatever you want to call it, heart, soul, is spectacular. And it's through the use of the medicines we use that is possible for you to experience. And it's just beautiful. It's heart opening. It's the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, gets dialed down. And for some people, it just takes a complete holiday. And you're able to have a conversation, to share things that maybe you've been avoiding talking about for fear of, you know, not sure how to say this or how my partner's going to take it. But anyway, all those conversations become so much easier with this particular medicine.
And I think
and you're just going to feel happy, right?
Happy and loved.
Like happy and loved and present, and it's lovely.
The communication, if you think of it from this perspective, and there's a couple of things I want to say about this, is that your communication is lifted by compassion and acceptance and presence. And then the sort of the fear lid on things, where it's like, I can't say that because, you know, it's going to start a fight that we had. So it's lifted by compassion, and fear gets set aside, so that sort of the level of conversation goes from, you know, here to here with an open heart.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to say to you, and I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that if you are watching this, you've probably been reading about psychedelics, you probably know a little bit of the psychedelic revolution, you've probably read about MDMA, you've probably done a whole bunch of those things. But almost all, well, in fact, I think we can say at this stage again, all of those studies are related to individual journeys, generally with a therapist that is going through some process of talk therapy and all the rest of it. Powerful, like literally in the world of PTSD and trauma, it's breaking the scale about how they measure healing. Like they have to come up with different ways to measure it. So that's all powerful and beautiful, but here's what I want you to know, that the healing that occurs when my true self is seen, heard, and witnessed by the true self of the one I love most in the universe, there is something that happens there that cannot be measured. There's something that happens there that no one else, no therapist, no clinical process, no amount of psychedelics can actually do the same, which is the person that I care most about, that I've dedicated my life to be with, sees me and all of me, good, bad, and otherwise, and vice versa, and we hold each other in a space of love and healing. That, my friends, will change you. It will change your relationship. It will change your partner. It's just how it goes. And
it'll change how you show up with your kids, how you parent, how you are with your family, how you approach your day-to-day life together. It changes everything, not just the two, how you relate with each other, but it's the ripple effect is quite large.
Yeah. So short version, you will not lose control. It makes you more of you, so you don't have to worry about that in any way, shape, or form.
Correct. And I have done psychedelics before. Is this different, and how? Well, why don't you share your experience of that?
Sure. Short version is this. It is different, and we hear it over and over and over and over and over again from clients who have a range of psychedelic experience coming to do our process, and then they go, it's like, well, wait a second, I've done this medicine before, and all that happened was we sat on the porch and we watched the sun go down. Or all that happened was we were at a party and we danced for all night long, but we didn't really connect with each other. Like, how is this going to be different?
Or I had a bad mushroom trip in college. We hear that a lot. It's like, that's not even close to what we do, but the decision is made then that I'm never doing that again, right? Yeah.
So here's the thing. This perhaps is the best place to start about the three types of psychedelics.
Yes.
And I'm going to get on my soapbox very quickly and say the phrase psychedelics is a terrible phrase because it doesn't actually address or discern the distinctions between the different families of psychedelics, and I'm going to give you the short version now. Group number one, the classics. So think LSD, mushrooms, peyote, mescaline, ayahuasca. Those are all what are called the classics. Now here's the thing you need to know about the classics. The classics are, they're amplifiers.
Yeah.
But they're non-specific. I'm trying to figure, non-specific is what I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Non-specific amplifiers. And what that means is whatever's going on for you, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, consciously, and less than consciously, gets bigger. So if you're a little bit pissed off and grumpy and you take classics, you could end up a whole lot pissed off and grumpy. Yeah. If you're in a space of fun and entertainment and joy, you could have a great, amazing time in the classics. The classics are beautiful, and they're also wild cards depending upon your state. Right. So we don't use classics in the connection experience because
we do not. Because it's unpredictable, and if you had a crappy week or you're dealing with grieving or you're dealing with stress, that's going to come out. Like, that's the thing about a bad trip that people have talked about in their past is, and there's no intention setting, and there's no, like, usually it's just you take,
So set and setting are even more, they're important with all psychedelics, they're even more, the most important with classics. The next category are empathogens and entactogens, and those are psychedelics that are heart opening. They generally work on the releasing or the emphasizing serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and they are loving, kind, gentle, beautiful, generally speaking, and the amygdala, the fear processing center of the brain, has a little bit of a wind down. So what happens is there's a very highly predictable experience in that process.
The worst thing that could happen is your heart will open and you might be a little tired the next day. So there.
Well, it's not entirely the worst thing that could happen. But just to be clear, it's highly reliable and it is consistent, and in the presence of the one that you love, that can be an incredible experience. And by the way, that doesn't mean that it is always joyful and those sorts of things. Heart opening means whatever's on your heart is going to come forth. So if you are experiencing sadness, you might experience some sadness. If you're experiencing grief, you might experience some grief. But it is within the context of everything that we do, still a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
And then the final category are dissociatives. So those are things like ketamine, nitrous oxide, salvia divinorum, 5-MeO, depending on dose, all of those things. So here's the bottom line. Our process uses empathogens and entactogens only. There's a 5-day lead up of intention. You have us as a safety net. We give you cues and processes and prompts for the arc of the experience that ensures, with great consistency, a beautiful evening of connection. 5 days of follow-up for intention and support and integration and all those pieces, and a follow-up coaching session, which answers the big question of, great, we had a cool experience. How do we bring this into our life?
Yeah.
So it is different, and over and over and over again. And if I were to count on average, I think we have about 20-ish couples that have had significant previous psychedelic experience that come to this, and it's like, holy shit, I didn't know that was possible. Like, how'd that happen? And it's like, well, it happened by design, and we do it reliably, and this is how we suggest it.
Yeah, and you're held in this beautiful container of support, you know, because I think for me, if I were just going to try it on my own, just with nobody there that could help if something did go kind of weird or whatever, I would be nervous and anxious about it. Yeah. Well, what is the medicine you use? Is the very next question. Yes. Specifically, the medicine we use mostly in the connection experiences, and for the couples that are a part of our ritual, they can play a little bit with different types of medicine down the road. And but what we start with everybody with, and what we've always come back to, our favorite, is an attunement medicine. The part of the evening of attunement where you just are able to have the conversation and just really connect with one another, and then takes that experience more into the body, usually. Yeah. So those are the two types of medicines that we use with most couples pretty much all the time. And again, there are some variations that can happen down the road. And bottom line, we get our medicine from the safest supply available in Canada, which is an amazing lab that supplies a variety of both above ground and below ground therapists and processes all across the land. And we are tight asses, is the best way I can put it, about your safety, which means that even though it comes from the best lab in the country, we test it 3 ways. So we test it for fentanyl, we test it for purity, we test it with ourselves before we ever share it with somebody else to make sure. That's the fun part of this job. Oh, we got some new medicine. Work. It's just so much work. It's really great. And that is another concern a lot of people have, is like, well, where do you get the medicine? Well, how, you know, because you hear all the horror stories about this, and you do have to be careful out there. You know, when we know couples are sourcing their own stuff and going out and getting their own thing, we just say, be careful and make sure you are getting the testing kits, make sure you're getting it tested, make sure you're checking for purity. Just, you know, that's on you. So you can take that risk. And we know people who have taken the risk, and thank goodness they're okay, but there have been some pretty sketchy stories that have come with that. Yeah. And we just want you to be safe, whatever you decide to do. Yeah, 100%. Okay, one more question, and then we're going to bring our couple guest on, okay? Yeah. All right. Okay. Oh, we just talked about that. What is the source and how do I know it's safe? So what is the medicine we use and what is the source? We kind of answered both of those in one answer. So. All right. So shall we bring our guest couple? So yes. A couple of things. So while they're coming up. So first and foremost, we are deeply, deeply, deeply grateful to our dear friends, Chris and Holly, who are willing to come and share their experience. And I think we're going to slide this way, and then they can come in this way. All right. Come on in and grab a seat. Actually, we shouldn't move that too much because of the cameras. You guys slide on in. Just stay here. And I've been looking in the middle camera. I hope that's correct, mostly. Well, if it's a single shot, you look there. If it's a middle shot, if it's two of us, then I'm looking everywhere. Who knows where I'm looking? You get my side eye. You get my side eye. It's all good. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Holly and Curtis. Da, 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 da. So here's the thing, and I just wanted to express my deep, deep, deep gratitude, and we're going to do this a fair amount just so that I can, I want to express my deep gratitude because this work,
number one, is still technically illegal, and not everyone is willing to talk about it. So you being willing to come and share with us means the world to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we just want to live in our truth, and we feel the power of this. So yeah.
Very cool. Okay, I think my first question really is, in coming to this, like we were really trying to draw out what couples face when they're trying to make this decision. And what's going on for folks. And, you know, you don't need to be specific about the mechanical details, but more about the feelings and those sorts of things. Like, where were you guys at where it's like, damn it, we're going to try this crazy shit, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I just think it wasn't terrible. Our life was pretty beautiful. We have 2 small children as well. But we, like, I say often that my well was just dry. Like, I gave a lot and I felt I wasn't receiving back as much as I wanted. So we just wanted to try something, and truth be told, we kind of went in just, it wasn't what we expected, it was what we needed, and yeah, so life was just a little flat. Yeah.
I
a good word.
You reminded me, because I actually wanted to say that at the beginning, like when in San Diego, when I tried MDMA on my own, the determining factor was, like, I felt like I had done and given everything I had, and the exact phrase I used when I came back was, the well is not only dry, but the you know, when dirt gets really dry, the ground is cracked. It's like, and the ground is cracked, and it's like, I got nothing left. And we talked a lot about that. So thank you for reminding me of it. So I just want to say this: if any of you are in that spot where it's like, I'm feeling taxed and there just isn't much left for me, this really fits.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It was just kind of, like you said, that brick wall in between us, and always I substituted just by working all the time. So work more longer hours, and then you're tired, so then you don't really have time for, after you deal with the kids, after you come home from work, you don't really have that time to put in with each other. So it just becomes a routine.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Because I think there's a lot of men like you and I. So that was a large part of my coping as well. Was I worked, but I had a weird twist on work, which I think also built a ton of distance between us. Which was, then I had, I'm going to say, a self-righteous, victim-y, superior. Oh, that's all sounding really good, isn't it? well, but honest God, it's true. It's like, I do all of this, so you have the, you know, you get to drive the Porsche Cayenne, the kids get to this, the kids get to that, and look what I can, like I was a dick about it. Like, not only did I avoid through work, but then I felt shitty about it and would remind Corey and the kids.
Absolutely.
Did you?
Did this exact same thing. Yeah, I would
And
always
it would
drive
make
the.
me feel, and I don't know if you had this, like, well, what do you think I'm doing all day, you know? And then it's like I would just feel small, and then that would have more, you know,
just build the wall even higher. Yeah.
So I want to just say this. So, husbands, men, partners, if there's any sort of victim-y self-righteousness about you providing, about your job, about the time that you spend away, about what it is that you do, that is a signal to exactly what Holly said of the well is running dry.
Yeah.
And it builds distance. Like I you know, I just think of some of the shithead things. I'm sorry. Like I just.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just the disconnect, right? I wanted that connection again, so. Yeah.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Cool. So, can you tell us a little bit about it? It's not what we expected, but it's what we needed?
Yeah, I mean, it totally has changed our lives for the better. I couldn't imagine going back. I think you had asked, you know, at one point, what would it take to go back to that life? And
nothing.
Literally nothing. Our life is full again. We are better human beings. We are better together. We are better parents. I'm happy again, like truly happy. I feel a love for Curtis that I didn't even know was possible. It's something we never felt before, but I can't even put it into words. Like, it's truly, a beautiful thing.
So can I ask you a question about that? Because we've had this conversation a lot, and I want to just say this. There's a difference between knowing you love me and feeling loved.
Absolutely.
And if ever you're in that spot of sort of justifying, oh, I know she loves me, but if you're not feeling it, this is something to occur. So what's your experience of feeling it different?
Yeah, it's just everything from just getting home from work and getting like greeted at the door, like that right there is just jumps and bounds for what happens now, you know. The kids are excited to see you too, right? So just having that first 5 minutes when you walk in, just be full of love and calm, right? It helps out tremendous.
And your people happy to see you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And setting an example of what they deserve when they, you know,
what it should look like.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's the thing, not being toxic, just showing them what it should look like so they can go out and have that advantage already.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Huge.
You know, it would be interesting to do a conversation with kids of couples who have done the connection experiences. What have you noticed has changed about mom and dad over
all the fridge art?
Yeah, we get lots of fridge art now. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And your children are, well, age-wise?
10 and 12.
10 and 12. That is such an important time.
Yeah.
That is
very
such
busy.
an important time.
Yeah, I'm thankful that we were able to experience this while our children are young, and so they can see us as happy parents, because, you know, I think we've all seen parents that, you know, are together and love each other but aren't in love, and that in love aspect really does make a difference for them. So
And it's what we all deserve. And I think that's the other part that I just want to call out, is you deserve to be in love, not just loved, in love. Like that's a different level of play.
Yes.
it makes life worth living. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful thing for sure.
Now, can I ask a Snoopy question that we didn't talk about at all?
Sure.
So how do you handle, or have you had to handle, the conversation around psychedelics and kids? Like, we ultimately went and had that conversation with our kids, but how did you guys handle it, or have you yet?
Well, funny enough, they YouTubed connection experience or something. So that's something we need to, but no, we just say plant medicine to them, but we haven't actually had too much of a conversation about that. We just say we go on these weekends away and we work on our marriage and our love, and
that's what we started with too, was exactly that.
Yeah, I think later on when they're older, for sure, we will speak to them about it, just because, you know, I think you have to obviously be a certain age.
Our conversation didn't quite go as we planned the first time, because we thought we'd sit them down, and they're a little older, but we said, you know, you both have friends that have parents that are divorced, right? Like, so you know what can happen, and so we're talking, mom and dad are doing this because we want to stay together and we want to be great parents and we blah blah blah. And then they said something about, well, you know what? But our friends that are divorced, like, their parents, they get 2 Christmases and they get 2 birthdays and they get extra presents, and then one said, I'm going to take Lou the dog and I get this room, and we're like, no, like, we're not getting divorced. And they're planning, like, they think it might be a good thing, right? Because anyway, it didn't quite go the way we thought it would.
So fast forward. So and I love it. And I can actually see, and because we've had that same experience of. Well, I'll share ours, which is when I was traveling, there were times where, because we've got friction and the wall is in place, and she's like counting the days down till I'm on a plane again. I'm counting the days down till I'm on a plane again. Yeah. And it's like, and now it's like, if we travel, it's like, well, I don't want to go. like
so different now.
The tone is just so different. Anyway, I guess, are there any other examples of what is just so dramatically different afterwards? And that could, like, the step at the door, that makes good sense. Are there any other specifics that grab you?
I think just always wanting to hang out with each other now, and you know, it's instead of being like, oh, I gotta run into town and grab something, it's like, do you want to come? Or it'll be like, hey, can I go with you? Like, we just love hanging around each other, and You know,
Genuinely liking each other.
Yeah, just
not pretending to like
just
each
having
other.
conversations while we're driving, like it's the
It's kind
best.
of like getting your best friend back, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
having not only that love relationship, but that friendship too,
Yeah.
is, I mean, that's magical.
Well, and the hard days are not so hard because you have someone there to love on you. Like, I gave Curtis probably an hour-long foot rub yesterday
yeah.
just because I wanted to make him feel better.
Fell asleep and all. It was amazing.
You know, I genuinely care about his happiness now.
Yeah.
I'm not only caring about my own happiness. I care about his.
Putting each other first too,
Yeah.
right? That helps a lot.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, and for us, we moved our massage table, which we had for years, but it was in the closet, into the bedroom to use for exactly times like
Perfect.
that, for exactly that.
Yeah.
I think I might also add to that, in the hard days, what you reminded me of is, I think in the old days, the hard days were the, screw everything and I'm going to do what I need to do and it's just, it broadens the context to, I might still have a hard day and I can still give her a massage.
Absolutely.
And because I want to, not because I think I should, not because it's the right thing to do, not because she asked, but because I want to.
Absolutely. Yeah, you genuinely want to do things and help out.
I think it's a shift from what's in it for me and what can I get to what can I give and how can I support and be more loving. And just that little, turn on that just shifts the dynamics in the relationship. When both people are doing that for each other, all of a sudden it's like, wow.
Yeah. Your selfless love ends up, allowing you to be more full of love and connection.
Filling someone else's bucket fills your bucket as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. And I think that the other part to that, if I go back to our pattern, was the noticing and acknowledging a act of love that would help fill the well. It's like, I see that, thank you. Like there's just that whole piece of recognition, which I think is huge.
Yeah, in integration we call it witnessing and acknowledging.
Yes.
And starting to do that with each other, because often we'll point out when things aren't quite right, or we're upset, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. And instead it's like, hey, hon, I really want to thank you for putting the new windshield wipers on my car, because, and just making note of all those little things that are good and supportive, and that also shifts the energy.
Yeah. And I know, and thank you, by the way, that you referred dear friends of yours to the connection experience. How have you been describing it? Like, what do you say to somebody? If somebody's sitting at home going, it's like, this is just, like, what would you say to somebody on the fence going, like, just, it's too much, it's too weird, it's too out there?
Yeah, I would just say, you know what, like, you can continue living this parallel life with your spouse, or you can take a leap of faith and try something new. What's the worst that's going to happen, really?
Yeah.
It's for us, it's been life-changing. I truly believe anyone that I've spoke to has said the same thing, and I think just, changing things up in your life. I said, just shake it up. We found beauty in it, and I would say it's worth it. You've got one life to live, and it's a pretty powerful thing, and I think life without love is not meaningful, and this has really put the meaning back into our life. So I would say, just try it.
Yeah.
You won't regret it.
Same thing, if you've tried a bunch of other things and nothing's worked, then what's one more thing to try?
Yeah.
Exhaust all your resources first before you give up. And this experience is, like I said, like Holly said, it's changed everything. It's made everything well worth it. So I wouldn't never change what we've done.
Don't let it be that what if.
Exactly.
What if we would have,
exhaust everything first.
just done that at connection experience? What if? And so that's kind of how I look at it too.
Yeah.
So, and on that note, I don't even know how to ask this question. So, any feedback? Or it's the capacity to be out of our regular frame of thought, like this capacity, and I'll use me as an example. I don't know if this, so my well, it feels dry. I feel like I am done everything I know how to do, and then 72 other things, and yet we try this and we start this, and somehow it's more open for me, somehow it's more open for you, and somehow some of those deposits stay. And I guess the thing I'm trying to say is that even if you think this won't work because we've tried everything else, you're not understanding the fact that this medicine changes the neural pathways in your brain. It changes the armor around your heart. It changes your capacity and desire to see and to witness love. And I love how you said that. And I just want to emphasize that exactly what Curtis said, which is exhaust all the options, is if you haven't done this yet, you haven't even gotten close to exhausting all the options, because this is not like anything else on planet Earth. Full stop.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Yeah, from anything from like, maybe you had experiences when you were younger and stuff, like you guys were saying, oh, college experience, like, oh, that was bad. It's like, but you didn't have probably the right intentions. You didn't have the same intentions or integrity that you wanted to jump in to something, to save something. You're just trying it for shits and giggles, right? Yeah. Whereas if you actually put your heart into it and everything's so hyper-focused on it, then that's when it shines through. That's when it gives you exactly what you need from this experience, and to help heal and fix things. Like you can't.
Well, even the lead up to it, right? The prompts that we receive from you guys, it's so intentional that it's a beautiful thing. You're not just willy-nillying it. It's a whole lead up to it, the excitement alone, but to prepare for it. It's very intentional, and we've tried counseling, we've tried many other things, and this is a million times different than we would have thought. And
All right. Last words. Anything else you want to say to anybody sitting on the fence?
Yeah, I would just say that, it's worth it. Just do it, and it's a beautiful thing. I would like everyone to do this, because I truly believe everyone deserves to feel this love and happiness. And
Like a cold plunge, just jump in, do it, pop out, and you'll feel way better.
Like that.
I'm not bold enough for a cold plunge, but
it'll make you feel so much better.
Right, Steve. All right. Thank you, brother.
Awesome.
Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Oh, they're so sweet.
Yes, I deeply appreciate and admire those stories. Number 5, I'll let you do that one because you are always very meticulous on that topic.
Okay, so question number 5 is, are there health concerns? And basically, yes, there can be health concerns. So one of the things that we do is we do talk to people about medications, because there are some contraindications. There are some medications that can for example, interfere with serotonin, and the medicine just won't work for you. So we also look for heart, high blood pressure, heart health. We talk to people about this, and we ask the questions to make sure that the medicine is safe for you. And if there are any concerns that we're not sure about, or there's some medication we're not sure about, we have referred couples to a, she's called a dharmacist. Yeah. She's fantastic, and she is very psychedelic familiar, and she was a pharmacist at one time, so she puts the two together to let you know if there will be any concerns or issues with your particular health concern. And then she gives you the heads up, gives us the heads up. Sometimes it means changing the medicine a little bit, and sometimes it's just a hard no. Yeah. So we do definitely take the health of our clients into serious consideration before doing this with them.
And we should just say, as enthusiastic as we are about this process, because it has made such a difference for us and literally tons and tons and tons of couples, I think we're closer to 350 experiences that we have supported. Yeah. Health is first. It's just as simple as Absolutely. That. And this is not for everyone. If it's for you, let's make sure you do it safely. If that's not for you, you just won't. And there's, of course, physical concerns. There's mental, emotional concerns. There are well-being concerns. So there's an intake form. There's a process. We will do an interview. We will make sure that it is exactly right for you, or we'll refer you elsewhere. Simple as that.
Yeah, and we have said no to some people. And also, I just want to add to the medication. Sometimes it involves tapering down your medications that you're on, depending what they are, and then you can have the experience safely and then go, so there's lots of options for certain things, but some things are just a hard no.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And there's variations and adaptations and.
Yeah.
Okay. How private is the experience, and am I going to share the experience with other couples?
Good question.
So we're giggling. Do you want to talk about that article you wrote that at one point in time?
Oh, well.
Okay. So here's the.
Let's talk about this first.
Okay. Here's the thing. First and foremost is that this is a very private experience. It's very, very private. So short version is this: Number one, we'll have a conversation with us. We'll make sure that it fits, to make sure that your health is right. We'll make sure all those things are ready. When you say yes, there will be a particular date. It is almost always on a Friday. You start with your texting assignments that are setting your intention and connecting with your partner and all of those pieces. And then we come together on the Friday night. Now, on the Friday night, we reset intention. And this is just to make sure that you are exactly in the right spot so that you are going to connect, give, love, share, receive. And for any of you that didn't do your homework, we can sort of do a little catch up there. That process does happen with a handful of other couples. So generally speaking, in terms of how the timing works, there's maybe another 3 to 5 couples, and that process goes on for about 45 minutes to 1 hour. And we set intention, you sign some paperwork, and you will do the first medicine in the room there together, and then we cut you loose and you go back to your hotel room.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, quite frankly, you are on your own with a quick little check-in from us before you get the second dose of medicine to make sure that you're physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually in a great space with one another. We just want to make sure that you're safe and that you're grounded and that you're having a meaningful experience. And then from there, you have privacy. So we are your safety net with structure, with process, with all of those pieces, but you have an inordinate amount of privacy. So it's you, the one that you love, doing your work, but with a context, a framework, and a safety net.
Yeah. And then if it's your very first connection experience, we will have a little chat with you the next morning so that we can know that, how you are and how the experience was for you. And yeah, so the funny thing that you wanted me to share.
Well, it's just so people, and we never got this because it's not us.
No.
But then people kept asking us.
Well, somebody brought it up. They said, "Oh, are you familiar with the whole psychedelics community and swingers clubs?" And we honestly were like, no, what are you talking about? And so we thought, oh my gosh, if that's out there, like there's some people that might think that, and maybe that might stop them from coming to have this experience with us. We should probably address it, and so we started, I wrote a little blog or article for Facebook about a funny thing about upside down pineapples, or
God, we just howled.
Anyway, it got a lot of reactions.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
So
we have a little bit of fun with that.
Yeah, and so we just want to say as clearly and as straight as we possibly can that this is for committed couples. And by the way, if that is you and you have a different alternative route and all the rest, you go to town, you do your thing, but just know that that's not what this is, and that's how that goes.
Yeah.
So safety and privacy.
Yes. All right. What about sex? What happens there? Performance, orgasms, like what happens on a connection experience? And that's a good question.
Yes, it is. So without taking too much time, I want to talk about the stages that we've noticed with couples. I sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier. With one of our couples that they're just a really shining example of this, which is most of the time, at the beginning of this process, most of the time, couples spend more time talking. They might have sensual, sexual time, but it's a little less of what I'm going to call the wild sex and intimacy processes at the beginning. And just think of it this way: is that for most of us in relationships, that we get friction between us, and the early connection experiences are usually about truth-telling, are usually about communication, are usually about healing, are usually about clearing this friction. We sometimes use this metaphor, which is, if you were thinking of, there's like a big 4x8 whiteboard, and as we're going through our life, we end up with all of these notes and all of these scribbles and all of this stuff all over, and then we're writing sideways and in between the lines and all the rest of it, and it just gets overwhelming. There's too much. And I often say that the connection experience is a little bit like clearing the whiteboard of all of the shit, putting in the upper left-hand corner the 5 most important things that are going on with us, and that's what we're going to focus on. And then we have all of this space to create when we go back to our life. And generally speaking, at the beginning, there's more of that clearing going on than there is, you know, the wild sex piece. Now, as it evolves, you'll find that there's more clearing, there's more space, and when there's more space, then there's more interaction, and then there's more sensuality, and then there's more sexuality, and then there's more exploration, and then there's more play.
Yeah.
Now, I would love if you were to tell a story about the psychedelics thing. She's given me the look already. But after 6 months of us talking and doing that clearing, our sex life utterly and completely transformed in ways that we would never have guessed. And not just in terms of the frequency and the intensity and the enjoyment and the openness and the capacity to reach out and initiate, but your body changed and how your body responded changed.
Yeah. And I used to think, you know, and I grew up very Catholic family, and so not only is there that part of sexuality, like there's just a taboo thing around it, but I used to think there was something wrong with my body because there was one way, one reliable way to have an orgasm, right? And it usually worked, but it was like just one way.
And by the way, I just have to say this, and if I veered off the path, that was not welcome. Get back to the path.
But here's what happens when you just, that whiteboard you're talking about, and when you're able to just see your person in a different way and you've cleared all this stuff between you, you know, what happened for me is my body came alive. It just came alive. And I felt alive, and I felt awake, and I felt, all of a sudden, I could feel my body. Like when we'd be having, you know, our time together, I could feel, I would say I'd compare it to feeling numb and disconnected to all of a sudden having feeling in my whole body, whereas that was never anything that I ever experienced before, ever. So that was beautiful, because I would try to explain to Jay, like, I feel like he's like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? What's different? And I couldn't even really put words to it. It was just my body was waking up. And so what that led to eventually was able to have orgasms in many different ways, not just one.
Like
and,
a lot
like,
of different ways.
It's like, oh, what was that? What just happened? You know, we'd laugh about it because I'd be like, I don't know what just happened, but that was amazing. Let's do it again.
And that was our favorite line. Like, let's do that again.
So that's one thing for me that just really changed everything.
Yeah. And I want to be very clear about this. As joyful and as sexual and as exploratory and as all those things as that was, that only came from the white space and us showing up for one another in a present way. And this is one of the things I still to this day I feel a little stupid about. Is that I can't say this, is that I don't know how long we were in that reinvention process where it was like, hey, I'm noticing a pattern. It's like, the longer we talk and connect, the better the banging. And it's like, I'm 50-something. I should have figured that out earlier. Anyway, I'm being a little bit facetious, but not by much. But it just became so clear that the incredible sexual connection and pleasure was a side effect, was a natural outcome of this thing that we weren't very good at.
Yeah.
And when we got good at that connection piece, ta-da, this incredible thing happened.
And that's why attunement is the first part of the evening with a special medicine designed for attunement. Because, and I say this to the guys, if you are not putting the importance and the respect and the energy into attunement, you're probably not going to get laid as well as you could.
Yeah, exactly.
If you did, because and this is, you know, maybe a male female thing, but women tend to, the feminine energy needs to communicate, needs to open up space, needs to, you know, guys can just go have sex and great, but as women, I feel we just need more of that. We need more of that connection. We need to feel seen. We need to feel heard. We need to feel understood. We need, all of that happens during attunement, and it happens in a wonderful, joyful way. It's not difficult, hard, or laborious, and that will shift the rest of your evening in your favor. Trust me.
in monumental ways. So, short version. I want to go back to the thing because we got a little off track, which is in the beginning of this process, there's more clearing. As that evolves, then there's more what I'm going to call sexual expression, and then there's this what I'm going to call rewiring of our relationship. That, you know, I'm going to go back to what Curtis and Holly said. It's like, you know what? And we just want to hang out together. We just want to like be together. If I'm going to like, can we do this together? Like our physical activity together was something that we've never really done before, because I like to run, she doesn't really, but then we just figured out how we could do it together, even if we aren't doing exactly the same thing. So what happens is you get rewired, and then all of it, please hear this, all of it gets easier. So I want to go.
That's what people miss about this. They think, oh, you just go take drugs and you want to. No, it's not. Your synapses are refiring. They're reconnecting. There's this stuff going on in your brain that makes this. Makes these changes in your day-to-day life that until you actually experience it, it's not just a one night, and it's never a one and done, and it changes everything in your day-to-day life.
Okay, so two other quick points on that. So number one, performance. Just so you know, I do think that you know, if there's a God, God is probably female and has a sense of humor, because one of the things about this medicine is that, for me, the most sensual, sexual, excited, attractive, erotic of my entire life. And the medicine can be a little, I was going to say hard on men's equipment, but it's exactly the opposite. It can be a little soft on men's equipment. So just know that sometimes a little additional support works. And by the way, that's not universally true. So for some people, it's totally fine. But for some others, it can be something that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
And the other part is this, is that it can be an orgasm suppressant for both men and women. And ironically, I'm just going to say it, I think that's one of the best things that ever happened out of this, because when we started playing and being more present with one another, is that we were making love for the experience of pleasure, not for the pursuit of orgasm. Yeah. And in the shift from the sharing and the experiencing of pleasure, instead of it having an end goal, is that we would make love for 5 hours. 6 hours, 7 hours, and it would be the best of my life, and didn't always include orgasm. Just like it.
And on the medicine, not to scare anyone when you say that, but it feels like it's 15 minutes. Like, seriously, it'll be 8 o'clock, and we'll, oh my God, yay, we got all night, and then we'll look at the time, and it's like 2 in the morning. What just happened? So it's like you're in this time warp together, which makes it even more special.
Yep.
Okay, is this a one and done?
Nope.
We hope not, because, well, no, you know, no, it's not. It's not a one and done.
No.
It can, and you certainly can make significant shifts and, you know, in your relationship doing this one time. But if you are looking for long-term integration and continuing to rewire and the synapses and all that, it's more than once.
Yeah. So I said earlier, I think it's about 90% of the couples who come and do this choose to do the ritual with us. The ritual is a bundle of 4 of these that are supported experiences, 2 home kits, so that you can begin to build this into your lifestyle and build this into your world. And the reason being, as clear as I can say it, we've already said, there's the clearing at the beginning, there's the more of the adventure at the end, and there's the ongoing rewiring, and that takes time. And in fact, the feedback that we've gotten from couples who've gone through the ritual and then sometimes done the ritual again is that it isn't until sort of this rewiring begins that this incredible lift happens in every aspect of their life. Yeah. So for us, we just want people to think about it as this is a process by which we are going to, quite frankly, reinvent and rewire. Corey and I call this process for us our reinvention. We're not the same people that started this in 2020.
Not even close.
Like, to be clear about this, this is the other thing that Curtis and Holly said is like, she was saying, I love him so much more that I didn't even know that was possible. Yeah. We kept saying that as we went through the process, our scale of how we measured kept changing. Because what I thought was going to be the greatest thing in the universe, like if we could just double the amount of times that we make love, I'd be happy. I wouldn't go back to double if there's a gun to my head. like it's just like, that's not okay. That experience of being loved, like it just, anyway, if you're going to do this, sure, come try it once to say, yes, I get what it is now. Yeah. But let's be clear about this. You don't shower once. and be done. You don't go to the gym once and be
Correct.
done. You don't go to therapy once
You
and
don't
have
eat
it
healthy
handled.
once, and
Yeah, this
as much
is
as that would be nice.
this is something
It's
that
like all of that. Yeah, it's building those muscles, those new ways of being.
exactly.
And can we test to see its effects on me, my heart, mind, and soul?
Yes,
You sure can.
you sure can. Exactly. So there's a whole bunch of ways in which we can serve and support you. And when we started this 2 years ago, we had
One way, yeah.
one way. But we've been busy, quite
Yes,
frankly.
and thanks to so many couples and people who have, even just the request, like, is there a way we can just, we've created so many new protocols that kind of fit everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to actually jump to something that we invented called the tease. And the tease is perhaps the easiest route for you to get a sense of what this is safely, privately, all of those pieces. And what the tease is a threshold dose, and that threshold dose you take in the comfort of your own home. And we have a digital course and a program that steps you through a variety of exercises and activities for you to explore what it feels like in your body, what it's like to have one of these conversations or a series of conversations with the amygdala a little bit offline.
Yeah.
What happens when, touch, if you think of the favorite touch you've ever sort of experienced in your life and you magnify that by 100, what does that actually feel like?
Yeah.
So it lays the foundation in a manner where you have this small, short experience that goes, that's what it is. And I think what you said is like, I just want to know that my arm's not going to fall off.
Yeah. I know, right? You just want to, like, I want to, what if I'm the one person that has a whatever?
Yeah.
You get to dip your toe in the water and just get a sense of how it feels in your body. It's a threshold dose, so it's not a full macro dose or what we use in the connection experience, but enough that gives you a sense and a feel of how it is in your body.
And it's not, it doesn't include the attunement medicine either. Now,
Yeah.
so that's one of the routes. We're going to skip past questions because of timing, gang, and I think that we've covered them as best as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So there is, first and foremost, the tease, simple, easy, inexpensive. If you're interested in any of those sorts of things, you need to reach out to us, and we will make sure that we answer the questions. Now, there's a couple of things that I also want to share with you, is that there's also this brand new protocol called the Couples Connection Microdosing. And many people who are exploring the idea of, are we going to try psychedelics, are playing with microdosing.
Yeah.
Now, to our knowledge, and I've done a bunch of research, this is the only protocol in the world aimed at couples. And it is a very unique protocol. If we do it between the connection experiences, it's a 4-week cycle. If you're doing it completely independently, it's a 6-week cycle. And we can help you with what the protocol is. We can help you with the evaluation and the measuring of it. We'll teach you all of those elements. And it can be a great, great, great place to start.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what we really want you to do, what will curl your hair, change your life, change your world, all those sorts of things, is the connection experience. And we do that in Calgary every 6 weeks.
Every 6 weeks.
We do that in the United States now approximately every quarter. And that really is one of the pieces that we would love for you to entertain. And the way to go about that is to click the button there at the top. And, well, I guess it's not at the top, but by the time this is on the page, the button will be right below. And you can book a time with us, and we will answer any questions specific to what you and your partner are up to. We'll do our best to either match you to an offer that is the right thing for you, or if it's not, we'll do our best to serve and support you to find what is. Just know that it is never our intention to sell anything. This is something that you've got to be clear about, and for you to choose, you and your partner go, this is for us, and we will serve you to the best of our capacity.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where to start.
All right.
Easy.
So, number one, thank you so much for watching. I know it's a lot of content, and I know it's a lot of information and details that can be a little bit outside of the box. What you will find as the link just below here as well, there's going to be a couple of other buttons, one of which is going to be an FAQ page, because even after all of this, you're very likely going to have a whole bunch of questions. And at the FAQ page, you'll also get a bunch of resources and materials and books and science for you to test. And there's also a little, if you want to know a little bit more about our story, there's an About Us page. You can go check that out as well, so that you know, we're unique in this space. There's really nothing else that exists like this. And our history in terms of facilitating program design, certification design, all those things, we're a bit of an anomalous case, and we bring all of that to serve and support you and your partner.
And we worked with couples for years doing couples weekends and retreats without any psychedelics, and I think back to that, like how valuable that was for people, but man, this just adds a whole another element of magic to it.
It really does.
So we have that experience as well.
So from the bottom of our hearts, if any of this has resonated with you, and I want you just to go back to, for a brief moment, if parallel lives are happening, if you're starting to make justifications, if you wish you felt more loved, if you'd like to express more love for your partner, if you'd like to be a better parent, if you'd like to lift the energy in your home, if you'd like to improve the energy in your bed, just take a moment and tell the truth, because this is the reality. Stepping into this is going to take you telling the truth about where you're at, what you want, what you need, where your partner's at, what she wants or he wants, what they need, and then coming together to do something with great intention. And it will transform you, it will transform your life, it will transform your relationship.
Beautiful.
All right.
We hope to see you in a connection experience soon. We really do.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Thanks for watching.